Yeah, I don't know. For you, were you kind of disappointed that there wasn't really any sort of planning or preparation against that? Like we saw, they went close one time before when Doku was on Gabriel, and that's a mismatch.
Yeah.
And then obviously the second time was Walker, and we saw him trying to do his little thing, hitting Gabriel to
Oh
distract him. It
man.
didn't really work. He hit him with a swift move, and he was out of there. And yeah, were you kind of disappointed on that front?
I was, because obviously we know Gabriel's threat already. In my opinion, that's the best aerial threat from corners, and Arsenal are one of the biggest teams in the league. Do you know what I mean? Probably the biggest. So for me, it was already a bit of a disappointment because of the way the goal happened. I don't know if you've rewatched it, but if you actually rewatch it, when Walker's doing his, trying to get into it, Gabriel's head. First of all, it's Gabriel, right? He's like, he wants the corner, right? And he's the main. If you look at the setup, he's the main target.
Yeah,
right?
you're not gonna rattle him that easy.
And then after he's doing his thing, he then gambles forwards on Gabriel running away from goal, and then Gabriel just goes straight past him to the back post and it's
Yeah.
wide open. On the actual keeper, there was a little bit of blocking or whatever on Ederson, but
Yeah.
it's the type of thing that happens. It's football. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So it's not anything crazy. For me, it's more about Walker should be. You'd expect someone who's the captain, who's supposed to be the one of the more senior players and part of the leadership team at the club, to have a bit more of, I don't know what the word is, but
Take
like,
a bit more responsibility in that
like a bit
situation.
more
Yeah.
experience. Like, you're doing childish stuff like defend. You know what I mean? But yeah, it was quite disappointing for me personally. I did want a bit more, but you know.
And then obviously, yeah, Arsenal 2-1 up after that. And I mean, yeah, the game was looking quite exciting. Going into the second half, I was quite excited. Coming into the game, obviously as a neutral, as I mentioned earlier, last season's games were not the most entertaining, and this game was really looking to live up to the billing of like a top two clash in a title chase. And then Trossard gets sent off right before half time, of course. And quickly, what do you think? Do you think it's a red card? Because obviously, I've seen a lot of Arsenal fans kind of moaning online about that. But I mean, for me, like we know referees are inconsistent at this point, right? And a couple of weeks ago, you saw Declan Rice get sent off for the exact same thing.
Yeah.
I feel like it's more on Trossard to be more sensible in that situation and just not kick the ball away after the rest playing.
For me, I think it is. I think it's a red card simply because he's already on a yellow, and the foul, he makes the foul, which is like, okay, foul. Like, there was gonna be nothing after that.
Yeah.
And then he hoofs the ball like, it's not even like a little like kick, or he punts it into the air.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, do you know what I mean? For me, it was just like kind of like standard. Like, what else can you like expect from that situation? You know what I mean? If they didn't give a second yellow, I wouldn't have been like, oh, that should have been a second yellow. Refs are whatever. I would have
Yeah.
been like, fairs. But the fact he did, it's not something I can really argue with myself. Maybe I'm biased because it's benefited my team, but that's just how I see it.
Nah, fair enough. And then obviously, second half started, and obviously Arsenal down to 10 men, and yeah, they were really camping out in their own box, defending like warriors. I'm not gonna lie, that was
Yeah.
one of the best defensive performances I've probably seen in a while, especially from a team of 10 men. They really did well to nullify you guys and restrict you guys to kind of shots from outside the box. A lot of the shots were coming from the likes of Ruben Diaz, Carl Walker.
Yeah.
I don't think Erling Haaland really had a chance in that second half.
No.
So obviously, as a City fan, from your perspective, like, what did you think of the approach from Pep in that when you've got 10 men and you've got the advantage and you're at home? Do you know what I mean?
For me, it was all a bit sort of. This kind of goes back to my original sort of. The things I didn't like with the lineup originally is that there wasn't enough in the squad anyway to break it down. Like, Arsenal are brilliant defensive team, right? Best defensive team in the league. But then when you look at Phil Foden, right? We're talking about player of the year last season, right? player of the season, right? And he came on in the 70th minute against 10 men who are camped inside their own box. Like, if you're trying to win the game, you don't wait till the 70th minute. He should be on at half time.
Yeah.
At half time, Arsenal took off Saka for Ben White, right? From then, it should have been the same change for us. We should have brought on Foden and really tried to go at them.
Yeah.
But it didn't feel like that was that sort of intent until very late. And then when Foden did come on, he was playing between the lines, which is basically like off the striker in the box, right? And wasn't getting space. 89th minute comes, and then he calls over Kovacic, and Foden tells him to switch. And it becomes Kovacic between the lines and Foden edge of the box. But by that point also, Savio has come off.
Yeah.
Doku's come off. So there's no wide threat. And because of that, Jesus is against Bernardo Silva out there, and he's clamping out every single
Yeah.
time, right? Declan Rice is on Phil Foden at the edge of the box, man marking. So every time Foden receives the ball, it's not like he's going to have space because the right winger hasn't really pulled anyone out there either. Declan Rice to just stay on him and sit off Bernardo Silva and let Jesus go 1-for-1. So to me, it comes back to the lineup thing, which is that there's not enough sort of attacking intent in that lineup, in my opinion.
Yeah.
There should have been a bit more. If there was, then we wouldn't have got to that situation where we were struggling to break down the block.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the things, as you mentioned, that kind of surprised me. I feel like the play once Arsenal went down to 10 men was very central. You know, City didn't really do well to kind of move the space, move Arsenal's players around and make good spaces. You know, I feel like taking off Doku and Savio was a bit of a mistake from Pep. When you're trying to break down a low block like that, a team that have 10 men, you want to be able to stretch them. You want to bring the ball out wide, stretch their defensive shape, and whip balls into the box, especially when you've got Erling Haaland, one of the most deadly finishers in world football, probably one of the most deadly finishers in Premier League history. You know, he just hit 100 goals for Manchester City in 105 games, tying Cristiano Ronaldo's record. And I feel like Pep didn't really do the most to exploit Arsenal in that situation, and make the most of kind of the situation that they had at hand. Obviously, the game ends 2-2 and it's a draw. I feel like both teams can kind of both teams can kind of take something away from it a little bit, but be a bit disappointed. I feel like from a Manchester City perspective, a draw against Arsenal at the Etihad, okay, of course you're at home, and you want to be winning your home games, of course, especially against a top 6 rival. But you know, Arsenal are a great team at this point, and you've got to respect them a little bit. Even if some of the Manchester City players don't want to do that, you do kind of have to respect them a little bit. And they did do well in that game, especially considering, especially going 2-1 up before the red card situation, of course. So I feel like, especially and in the way that they equalised at the end, in the manner that they equalised, coming away with a point is not the worst thing in the world from their perspective. I feel like Arsenal in the moment conceding last minute, of course it's heartbreaking for Arsenal fans, and I'm not gonna lie, watching it as well, I did want them to hold on to kind of secure all 3 points, because it would have been a massive win in the title race. But you know, ultimately going to the Etihad and coming away with a point is not the worst thing in the world. So yeah, what do you think about what's your reaction kind of to the result?
My head was gone, man, because it was like, to me, right, we scored, and obviously once we scored, yeah, John Stones, it went in, the crowd went crazy, yeah. But like after like 10 seconds, I was like, bro, we're at home. That was before the game started. That was one thing I tweeted out. I was like, the most disappointing thing about this lineup is that we're playing at home, right, against a weakened Arsenal team, right, and we're at home having to equalise with the last kick of the game against 10 men. Like, does that not, like, obviously people started to, you know, people obviously a bit annoyed at the result. It's always nice to like upset Arsenal fans, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But still, like, for me, like, we were just about to lose to 10 men at home, at the, like, to our title rivals who had their best midfielder was out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? For me, I don't know, it's a bit bittersweet. Like, obviously you like to celebrate the last minute goal, and obviously the dopamine will hit, but it's like, bro, still, like, I feel like we could have, this is our best chance, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because when we go to the Emirates, it's going to be a whole different story. We're going to the Emirates, I think, February 1st or February 2nd, and it's going to be different, you know what I mean? They're going to be a bit more in their stride.
They're going to be up for it, especially the way that game ended, the kind of back and forth between likes of like Haaland and Gabriel.
Yeah.
Even Arteta was catching some corners as well. It's all crazy. So they're definitely going to be up for it still in the Emirates.
For sure.
But obviously in that game we mentioned earlier, Rodri came off in the first half. It's looking like it's going to be a cruciate ligament injury. He's out for the rest of the season.
Yeah.
How big of a blow is that for you guys in the title race? Because I mean, this is someone who, in the past year or whatever, what's his record, like 70 something wins, one loss, one loss at the hands of Man United, by the way. But his record is ridiculous, and what he offers on the pitch as well is irreplaceable. But obviously, you guys are gonna have to find a way to replace his impact. So how do you see Pep and Manchester City kind of getting around that?
At first, not gonna lie, at first I didn't feel too strongly about it. Like at first I was a bit like, you know what, Fez, because this is what happens. Because throughout like the last, when did I start seeing? I think around the time of the treble season, right? From around then, Rodri's been playing every single game. I think even back then, there was games in like the FA Cup against like championship teams where Rodri would start over Calvin Phillips because obviously Pep doesn't really rate Calvin Phillips.
Yeah.
And then from then on, it's been sort of like, you know, we need to sign a DM, you know, like it's quite a big thing. Last season, you know, Rodri survived, but there was a lot of games where Rodri looks like he was at his wit's end. Like he looked so defeated. Like, and he was doing a lot more last season as well. He was doing a lot of running, a lot of more box to box stuff. And then defensively, he was also quite isolated. But then I feel like even though an ACL injury is not something you can necessarily directly blame on load, it's still like the fact that there's been that risk of, you know, Rodri getting injured for quite a while, and it's sort of just been never really
addressed.
Yeah, it's just sort of been ignored, I guess. Like it's to me, I don't really understand it personally. I feel like I feel like you had to sign. I know there's been comments from Pep and the board and different sources and different articles like The Athletic have said, it's hard to find players to be backups for Haaland and Rodri and these types of players because they play so much football.
Yeah, of course.
Players don't want to sit on the bench. But just because it's hard doesn't mean it's impossible. Do you know what I mean? You can sign backup sixes, right?
And of all clubs as well, like Manchester City, you guys
know
are,
what I mean?
Arguably one of the best clubs in the world currently.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, people are going to want to come to you regardless.
100%. And it's like, even if it's a young defensive midfielder from a different country, he'll come and sit on the bench and learn. Like, he knows after City he will get better. If he doesn't get better, he'll still get a move to another team. Do you know what I mean? But there hasn't been any of that. What I wanted personally, I wanted Andre, not Andre, sorry. Andre is not my name.
Andre is not my name, mate. It's not his name, bro.
The Andre, sorry. I'm gonna do a Nana because for me, what it was, my sort of thinking was always get a number 8 who can also play number 6.
Yeah.
So get someone who can play next to Rodri, and then when you need to get Rodri out, they'll move in, and then you could bring in like Kovacic or whoever to play with them. That was always my line of thinking. So it was gonna be Onana and Rodri as a 2. There was also Bruno Guimaraes, who were interested in over summer. He had a 100 mil release clause, and we weren't willing to go higher than 85, which to me, this is the price you pay. Because back then I was saying 50 million difference is not that crazy. It's not like we're broke. First of all, we're Man City. Second of all, I think we made like 150 mil in sales last season. Not last season, this summer, with like Alvarez, Delap, Harwood, Bellis, all those signings, Yanku. So to me, it was like, it's not like it's a financial issue. You know, we can sign... We were willing to pay 85, just pay the extra 15, because what we would have done is pay the extra 15 mil, and it would have been the difference between what we have now, which is basically either Gundogan or Kovacic, or Bruno Guimaraes paying 6, and that can kind of save our season. Do you know what I mean? So for me, that was one thing. Also, João Neves ended up going for 50 million plus Renato Sanchez, so we could have easily paid that and sent them a player. Especially because it's Benfica, we could have sent Bernardo there. Do you know what I mean? There's so many... There's
itching to get Bernardo out of the club, you know?
No, because honestly, he's been trying to get out as well. So honestly, there's so many ways. We could have even sold one of our academy players over there. Do you know what I mean? There's so many alternatives. But now this is the situation we find ourselves in, which is that, you know, Roger's out for the season, and now we're looking at Kovacic or Gundogan. Neither have the in-possession ability that matches Rodri, and neither have the defensive ability to match Rodri. Neither have the height either to match Rodri. Do you know what I mean? So it's a bit of a tough situation. I think we'll find a way around it, but I don't think I really don't see us as like title favourites anymore right now.
Really, you don't put yourself as title favourites?
No, I don't think, because I think it's been proved. Even though it's a small sample size, when we play without Rodri, the team sort of crumbles. So now we have to sort of build up we have to almost go back to the drawing board and design a new system, right? And then we need to design. We normally then finally get into gear and settle on the system around like February, March times. Yeah,
that's when you guys lock in.
So we need to design a new system now after preseason, and then do another thing like lock in around February. So it's, for me, I don't think we can. I still think we would have a good finish. It would be really impressive if we do manage to win, but I'm saying like second, third. That's what I'd say.
Third, nah, no chance,
Yeah,
man.
honestly,
Pep Guardiola is not finishing third with this Manchester City team, and if he does, I'm not letting him get away with it. Definitely not.
oh man,
But yeah, no. Obviously, we'll wrap that up for this game now. Arsenal versus Man City also played in the WSL, and I know you've been getting into your bag for women's football recently. So yeah, man, talk to me. What do you see in that game?
I think this game was so. Oof. It was kind of like it's early in the season. Do you know what I mean? It's first game.
Yeah, I can't lie. I was watching it, and I'm not really as tapped into the women's football as you are. But I mean, it looked Arsenal, especially in the first half, kind of played you guys off the park.
Yeah,
Like, the way they were
ridiculous.
escaping, like you guys had majority of the ball, but they were getting out of pressure easily, creating chances on the counter. They should have scored more than they did in that first half. Definitely. So yeah.
I think it's quite funny how there's a lot of similarities between the men and women's team in terms of sometimes players and sometimes like problems that we have. So like we have Yui Hasagawa, who's our number 6. She's incredible. In my opinion, that's the best number 6 in women's football right now. Yeah. But for lots of that game, especially in the first half, she was so isolated, so isolated. So we played her with Vivian Miedema. Doesn't really need any more introduction.
Yeah.
Legendary, but she's playing in midfield with Jess Park, who's also an attacking midfielder, right? And there's not that sense of. Obviously, Viv is a bit older now. I think she's just coming off an injury as well.
Yeah.
And she's got a bit older now, and I feel like defensively, because she's a forward, defensively, there's never really that sort of. There's some things you can't teach. Like for example, when players go in for tackles or go into press and they gamble forwards instead of gambling backwards.
Yeah.
Things like that you just can't teach. It's just nature. Do you know what I mean? Especially after playing so many years of football. It's just things that's ingrained in you that will never come out. So I feel like things like that, because she's just a bit less of a midfielder, and also Jess Park is an attacking midfielder. With Yui, she's practically by herself in that midfield. There's so many times, especially throughout the game, but especially in the first half, where they're playing through us, and then Yui's basically by herself, and they're all just running at her, and we're really exposed. There's a lot of times where they should have scored. There was quite a few opportunities they should have scored. We had Yamashita starting, and she done really well actually. She's impressed me quite a lot these past few games. And in pre-season too, but there's a lot of times where they should have scored, or they should have taken a chance better. We also got quite lucky in the second half with there was a goal they put offside.
Yeah, nah, that was offside.
That was not offside.
That was an offside, man. We need VAR in the women's game, bro. We need it.
Honestly, but I really didn't. I don't know. It was sort of the same, well, not the same, but it's a similar issue that the men's team had last year, which was that Rodri is quite isolated in the midfield, and the solution to that either has to be, you have to change the system so that there's someone a bit closer. So that's one solution. The second one, which I've been a bit more sort of inclined towards, is that there has to be some sense of instruction. Also, I think it will change when Jill Ward comes back. I think we'll probably start seeing a Jill Ward, Jess Park, and UE midfield. But I think that. Again, Jill Ward is more of an attacking midfielder as well. Yeah. She's not a forward, but she's still more of an attacking, creative midfielder. I feel like with Jill Ward, it's going to get a bit better because she has that sort of midfield sense of where to be and when to gamble and things like that. But at the same time, there still needs to be a bit of instruction. It has to be, if we're going to play 2 10s with a 6, when one goes, one has to stay. Do you know what I mean? Or perhaps the fullback should invert a little bit more so that there's a bit more support in the middle of the park and it's a bit more compact. There has to be some sort of understanding there, and I think it'll come over time. I think it's literally the first game of the actual season, or the league season, sorry. So over time, you'll see it a bit more, with more reps. I think it will just get better, or we'll get to where we need to be honest. But yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. We'll keep an eye out for that. Moving back over to the men's side of the game now. Liverpool beat Bournemouth 3-0 at Anfield last week, and I don't know, I was watching this game, and obviously Liverpool did well to score 3 goals, taken quite well. I mean, Luis Diaz's first goal, I think, was a gift from Kepa, to be honest. But I mean, they did well in the game, obviously, to take the chances. But I mean, Bournemouth had some good chances, especially in that first half, to kind of take the lead. I know Semenyo scored early; it was disallowed. She was narrowly offside, and they had a couple chances. Ouattara in the second half when he came on, I thought he was quite decent. But yeah, obviously Liverpool got the job done. and it's been a pretty great start for Arne Slot. In this new manager role for Liverpool. Obviously, they've beaten Manchester United 3-0 at Old Trafford as well. And yeah, they're looking different to how they did under Klopp, but I still feel like some of the principles are still the same. I still feel like they try and get the ball forward quite quickly. They try and obviously they do try and build up a little bit more, playing out from the back a bit more. But I feel like when the opportunity arises for them to go direct, they still try and take the opportunity. The first goal came from a Kanate long ball, I believe, and then Darwin Núñez's goal came from a Kanate long ball as well. And I think it's impressive how they can kind of mix it up still. Like they can play through you and play through the first quite quickly with nice build up patterns. You've got Gravenberch in there who's impressed me so far, to be honest. The way kind of Slot has taken him from a misfit, I feel like he was under Klopp when he signed, to this six who can kind of do it all, box to box, carry the ball forward, find nice passes, and yeah, I feel like Liverpool, they look like a really well-oiled machine at the moment right now, and to be honest, I think they do have some decent chances at the title this season. What are you thinking about Liverpool so far?
Yeah. I thought the same until who did they lose to? Was it Forest? I think they lost to.
Yeah.
Up until that, I had Liverpool as one of the favorites. I thought they could possibly nick second of Arsenal, because I thought from the start, from the first few games, I thought, yeah, we look good, we're going for it this season.
Yeah.
And then I thought Liverpool might have a chance to take up Arsenal, but I don't know. I think it's sort of regressed a little bit, but still, like, they do look really good. I do think in that game, you're definitely right. Bournemouth had a lot of chances. Like, the scoreline didn't really represent the difference between the teams, like in terms of how they performed, in my opinion. But I feel like the scoreline showed difference in quality. Like, when Liverpool got their chances, it was a goal. Do you know what I mean? When Bournemouth got some of their opportunities to create a chance, it sometimes didn't get to that final bit, where I think they can improve on, obviously. But it's it's Liverpool, it's Salah, it's Diaz, it's did Jota start that game, or was it Núñez?
Nah, he didn't start that game.
Okay.
But yeah, I know what you mean. They've got the quality. They've got that. I mean, they've got those star-studded players, like you mentioned, obviously the attackers, but then they've got the likes of Trent at the back, Van Dijk, Alisson. I know he was out injured for this game, but these are just game changers, kind of needle movers, if you will, in the title race. Players who have been there before, they know what it takes. They've got that experience. And yeah, someone that I did want to touch on there was Luis Diaz, because I mean the way that he started this season, he looks different to last season, definitely. I feel like when he first signed for Liverpool, he was quite exciting in the league. I don't know, I feel like the league maybe was missing a bit of those electric type of wingers. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Someone who looks to get the ball, take on their man, bit of flair here and there, and he was doing well in terms of contributing with goals and assists. But I believe he was out for a while with an injury, and I don't think he really came back the same from that, and he kind of struggled under Klopp, especially last season, being a bit wasteful with chances. But I mean, the way he's been looking in Slot's new system now, can't lie, he's looking scary. He's looking brand new a little bit. He's taking chances. He's making correct decisions when he's through on goal, when he's in and around the box. And yeah, man, what have you thought of Luis Diaz so far?
I'm not too big on Diaz personally.
Really?
But I think he's definitely impressed. Is one thing I saw yesterday was something like last season was the first time he's really like mass underperformed this XG, and if he'd performed at a normal rate, he would have like I think 7 or 8 more goals than he did. So the player's always been there. I just think sometimes it's a bit with the final parts of it and the decision making. I think sometimes lets him down, but so far it really does seem like he's having a good start. And if he continues this form, like you've got him on the left, you've got Salah, you also got Cody Gakpo, who I'm a really big fan of. Yeah. You've got Jota, obviously. Like that's a lethal attack. Do you know what I mean? There's goals coming from everywhere. Like I don't know, it's going to be tough to stop them for sure.
Nah, definitely. And obviously Liverpool played in midweek in the Carabao Cup against West Ham. Was it a 5-1 win?
5-1, yeah.
Thrashing after going 1-0 down. I know you watched this game. I was watching Man United disappoint to 20, but we'll talk about them later. Liverpool, man, what do you see in this game?
So obviously they started off 1-0 down. I'm pretty sure it was a bit of a mess up. Like
it was a Quansah own goal.
Yeah. I think Endo tried to clear it or something, and it just like fell off his leg. Like there was nothing Kwanzaa could do about it. But I think main thing I'll say is that West Ham actually made it easier for Liverpool than it should have been. I think when you look at the lineups, you definitely expect, especially based on last season, like for me, you definitely expect, which is what I thought in a lot of these games, that you definitely expect West Ham's lineup. Like it looks good on paper.
Yeah.
But you watch them, it's like, bro, what are they doing? Like it doesn't even make sense. Like I don't know. I feel like with Liverpool, I think it was Gakpo had a brace. I think Jota may have had a brace.
Jota got a brace, yeah.
Yeah, like it was pretty standard. You know, there's not much you can do about Liverpool, but within the game itself, there's a lot of times where, for example, it's kind of similar to Bournemouth, but they didn't play anywhere as near as anywhere near as good as Bournemouth did. Which is that, for example, like someone will get the ball in the attack. I think it was Bowen who I saw who played quite a nice ball to someone on the left. I can't remember who it was, but then it doesn't result in a goal. Do you know what I mean? It's just these things where it's like they've got a chance. Like here, if you give that to Liverpool, Salah plays the ball to Diaz. Diaz scores, or Diaz gives it to someone else, and they recycle a bit, keep the pressure on, and then they get a shot off. But with West Ham, it's like the opposite. Like they get into chances where you can literally transition from there to the final third, and they just don't really get that bit into the final third and get the chance. I think that's sort of their biggest issue at the moment. But for me, yeah, Liverpool pretty standard. Gakpo, great first goal. Second goal was nice too, but it was a deflection. Even still, great game from him. I'm a really big fan of him, and it's nice to see him playing on the left in a role that kind of suits him a bit more. I know he's played a few games at false nine under Klopp. I know he's played a bit off the left, a bit in midfield as well. But yeah, no, I'm a really big fan of him, and I'm really, really impressed with how he took his goals. I think it could be between him and Luis Diaz and Jota, because obviously Salah's going to be the one who's sort of nailed on. Between them three, it's going to be interesting to see how that sort of competition goes in terms of battling for that second and third spot in the attack.
Yeah, I mean, I think the options are kind of, I think Slot's kind of lined up his options based on position. I feel like, as you mentioned, under Klopp, like Gakpo was playing false nine, he's playing off the left, he's playing in midfield, but it seems like Slot is like, Cody Gakpo, you're a left winger, you're my left winger, and you've got him and Diaz on the left, you've got Salah on the right, you've got Jota and Nunez kind of up front, and they've got, I mean, their depth's incredible across the front line. But yeah, we'll move on to Chelsea versus West Ham. Another poor West Ham performance. Shocking, I can't lie. I was watching this game, and I mean, I feel like Chelsea did play well, to their credit. There were a couple nice moves in there. I think it was Jackson's second goal. I really like the movement on there, kind of coming in deep, spinning in behind, and the finish on that was good with the outside of his foot. But some of the defending from West Ham, some of the even the attacking play at times looks stale, And you mentioned the lineup that they have. I'm looking at guys like Lucas Paqueta, like show me something. Do you know what I mean?
For sure.
And I don't know. I was just a bit disappointed. Like he just over and over again losing the ball. And of course he's trying things. He's the number 10. That's the type of player that you want to take risks in those positions. But it just wasn't really coming off for him. I thought Kudus was quite good. He's someone that typically does perform quite well. Somerville started in that game. I think he was quite good as well. But yeah, man. In general, I don't know. I wasn't really too impressed with West Ham again. But let's focus a bit more on Chelsea. How much have you seen of them so far? And what have you been making of them kind of under Maresca? Because a lot was made last season when obviously Poch was sacked and they almost got top four. It kind of didn't really make a lot of sense for a lot of people to kind of make that decision. But they've started pretty well under Maresca. So yeah, what have you made of them?
They've been a bit better than I expected, to be honest. I feel like Chelsea, with me, it's always like, I don't know, I still feel like that Graham Potter / Pochettino era of Chelsea where it was, it felt a bit like anyone who plays Chelsea, there's opportunity for points there.
Yeah.
It feels like now it's a little bit more calmed down. Like, I don't know, it still does get quite erratic in games. For example, like the finish to, was it Bournemouth? Yeah, Bournemouth, finish to that game. But still, like Chelsea, for me, I think they're doing all right. Like, they're going at the pace you'd expect. They're resting players, rotating a lot. there's sort of, I guess there's sort of been like almost, I wouldn't say a nailed on first team, but there's sort of like players you'd expect now to see in that starting lineup. For example, there's a Palmer, Jackson, Madueke, yeah. You know, it's quite a few now. There's also at the back is still a bit more. You know, for me, I'm not really too much of a fan of their defensive situation right now. But you know, they're playing well. Like they're doing.
I think there's a couple of nice pieces, and I think Caicedo's been kind of. I think he's kind of gone under the radar a little bit this season. I've been impressed with some of his performances. Obviously, he made a big money move from Brighton. I believe he's the most expensive midfielder in Prem history. Yeah. And I mean the start wasn't too great. I'm not gonna lie. But I think he's been steadily building on his performances so far this season. I've also been impressed with Colwell as well. I'm not gonna lie. I think he's been. I mean, on the ball, we've known what he could do from his days on loan at Brighton. But I think at the back as well, he is a solid defender. And yeah, there's a couple pieces there that Chelsea can work with for me anyway at the back. So.
No, I agree, definitely. I think one thing I've noticed this season especially is Cole Palmer and how his I don't know, I wouldn't say how much his role has changed, but I think he himself has changed a little bit because of the way that teams are treating him now. It's always that second season thing. It was the same with Arsenal in Arsenal's first season of being like a really like good side.
Yeah.
They were having a lot more fun playing fluid football, whatever. Their second season, Arsenal facing low blocks every week.
Teams are more aware of your threat now. Yeah.
You see. And I feel like it's been sort of a similar thing with Cole Palmer, is that back then, obviously everyone in football knew about who Cole Palmer was, in it, but they didn't really have that respect or that fear that they have from now. Now it's almost like the game plan is set up to stop him.
Yeah.
Like he's getting a lot less touches in like enjoyable areas, or like in situations where he'd want it, and he's looking visibly more frustrated. I'd say now. There's a lot of the times where he used to get a lot of joy in the center on the ball and have time, and he can do whatever, toy with the defenders. But now he's getting it. Someone's into the back of him. Do you know what I mean? And then when you pair that in with, sometimes for me, he's Chelsea's best player. So when you pair that in with some of the players not being on the same wavelength as him in certain games, or some players not giving him the ball, which I saw in the West Ham game, he scored a brilliant goal, of course, but there was times where, like Madueke, for example, could have passed him the ball and didn't, and you could see him get visibly frustrated, and then he ended up getting subbed off. I'm pretty sure he's pretty annoyed at getting subbed off, but this is just it's something he's gonna have to adapt to, and I have no doubt he will. But it's just gonna change his game a bit. You might see a bit less in terms of output from him, simply because teams are gonna be like focusing on him a lot more.
I think Chelsea will get less penalties as well.
Oh yeah.
So
for sure.
No, definitely. Do we want to talk about Sancho a little bit?
Oh, I'd love to talk about Sancho.
Let's talk about Sancho a little bit.
Sancho, man, wow. I'm impressed. I didn't really see too much in the last game, to be fair, but he managed to get an assist. Whether that's an assist or not, I let the court decide. But he's got a soap score assist. Sancho, I've always liked Sancho. I've never been too like big on him, like in terms of like best winger in the world or anything. But I've always liked him as a person and as a player, sort of thing. So it's good to see him shining. I feel like this team sort of surprised. I thought it was going to be a mess. I really thought there's no way. Like how are they going to play all these wingers, blah blah blah. But now I'm seeing it, like it seems like he sort of fits in quite well in the Chelsea team, in my opinion. And I feel like there's sort of that left mid role. I don't know if he's going to be the number one starter throughout the season, but the way they're rotating it with like him playing some games and coming off, and then Neto or someone else coming on, and then in the Conference League as well, I think they have it the opposite way around, like things like that. Like I think it's going to work out for him. I'm not sure how successful he'll be at Chelsea, how long he'll stay at Chelsea, things like that. But so far, it does look good for him, in my opinion.
Nah, fair enough. I mean, this is what I'll say on Sancho. Obviously, as a Man United supporter, I mean, when he signed for the club, I was excited. I remember talking to Aaron about it, saying that we needed to get him in, and I think there were when he came to the league, there were a couple misconceptions about him. I watched him a fair bit, I'd say, at Dortmund, so I kind of knew the player that we were getting. But I think a lot of people thought we were getting like an explosive, dribbly winger, someone that's going to take on your man, get goals and assists that way through like driving with the ball into the box. But that's not really the type of player Sancho is. He's more someone who thrives off like combination play, linking up well. If you look at his games at Dortmund, or his role at Dortmund, his best games came when he was playing as well on the left or on the right, but he was more in those half spaces, and he'd have a overlapping fullback, someone like Hakimi or Guerrero or even Thomas Meunier, who would kind of take up the wide position, allow him to drift into the half space, and then get on the ball, drop deep, combine with players, and create spaces and create chances that way. And I mean, at Man United, we didn't really have the setup for that, and I feel like that ultimately that's why we didn't see the best of him. I do think there are a couple issues maybe with his physicality a bit. Like he's not like even when I was watching him at Dortmund, like I thought he was quicker than he is now. Like once he's got, like seeing him in the Prem, he does not look as quick as he did at Dortmund. But I mean, I still feel like you can get a decent to good player out of Sancho if you put him in those conditions. And if you look at the personnel Chelsea have, the likes of Nkunku, Felix, Palmer, Madueke, these are all players that like to link up, like to play in those small spaces. And yeah, I mean, ultimately it does look like a better fit than at Manchester United. Unfortunately for me, but you know, it is what it is, and I'm not someone that's going to be hating on him, man. If he goes on to shine at Chelsea, so be it, as long as it's not against us. Do you know what I mean? But
on the topic of fits at Manchester United, what do you think of Erik ten Hag and his fit at the club right now?
Straight up. I mean, bro, this guy. I'm not gonna lie. I'm tired. It's a weird one with Ten Hag, because I feel like this season, from what we've seen, we have been better than last season. Like I've seen a lot of kind of disingenuous takes saying that it's the same as last season. It's definitely not the exact same as last season, but it's still nowhere near good enough. Like let me make that clear. It's still not good enough at all, and it's the fact that the standards were so low last season that anything was gonna be an improvement. And you know, we've had a couple decent showings. Like the first half against Fulham was alright. The first half against Brighton was okay. But I mean, Brighton we couldn't finish the result off. Fulham in the second half we were dry for a lot of those spells. Most recently, obviously in the league, Palace I think was probably our best performance under Ten Hag since the Carabao Cup final against. Like in terms of a dominant performance, controlling the game, and since the Carabao Cup final and those 2 legs against Barcelona, I think that's probably the best we've looked under him like the last 18 months. I mean, we did do quite well to play through Palace, break their press, and create chances. But I mean, at the end of the day, you've got to finish those chances. You know, football is a game that's won and lost on scoring goals. And if you're not scoring goals, then do you know what I mean? What are you doing? And I think we saw a bit more of that again against Twente, obviously in the Europa League earlier this week. I don't think we were as good, to be honest, in the first half against Twente, but we did get the goal. I think Twente stopped us from playing a bit more than Palace did. I think their press was a bit better, it was a bit more intense. And then, you know, you could kind of see in the second half, once they got their goal, the game just kind of became end to end for a bit. Like until they made a sub to go 5 at the back, and that's kind of when they conceded territory, conceded possession, and we were on top of them for like the last 10-15 minutes. But they came out and scored, and the game was end to end, and it really looked like they could go on and win it at Old Trafford. And like that's just not something you should be saying of Manchester United. You know what I mean? I mean the records speak for themselves, to be honest. On under Ten Hag, I think it's like 6 wins in the last 19 Prem games or something like that. It's one win in our last 9 European games, something crazy. So I don't know. It's been a uninspiring start to the season, I would say. You know, I think some of the signings who have come in have things to offer. Like I really like Xerxes as a player.
100%.
I think he can provide us something. We've already seen with his link up, his dribbling, his weight of pass. He's a quality player. Euro, when he's back fit, I think that was a great coup from us during the summer to kind of take him away from Real Madrid. But I mean, the likes of Ugarte, De Ligt, the jury is still out. Do you know what I mean? We're still kind of waiting. I mean, De Ligt, he's got a little bit of goodwill, to be fair. He's had some good performances the last two games against Southampton and against Crystal Palace. Obviously scored against Southampton as well. But I mean, the jury's still largely out on those players. So we've got to see in the next couple of weeks. But I mean, as a Man United fan, I can't say it's looking too great for us. But we'll move on quickly to finish the show, to wrap it up with some La Liga talk, because the competition in Spain is hotting up a bit. Obviously, Real Madrid, the current Champions League holders, added to their super team by signing Mbappe over the summer on a free transfer, which just feels unfair. But you know, it's not been them that have been taking the headlines in Spain. You know, Barcelona under Hansi Flick, new manager coming, obviously taking over from Xavi. They're what, 7 out of 7 to start the league so far.
Sure, yeah.
And I mean, the football they're playing is looking good. They're scoring boatloads of goals.
Yeah.
Rafinha's getting in there. Lewandowski's getting in there. Olmo is getting in there. But I mean, there's one man, boy, child, who's really stealing the show, and that's Lamine Yamal, bro. Is this guy the best right winger in the world already?
Yeah, I think he is. I said he is. Yeah, he's the best. I think he's the best winger. Full stop. That's another comment. I think he's the best. I think he's the best winger.
Of current performances, of the way the season started, I can't really disagree with you.
Yeah, for me, the only person I'd say, you know what, fair enough, is Vinny. I'd say Vinny and him.
Yeah.
That's the debate I'd have. But right now, I don't know. I haven't seen a better player. In terms of, you know, I posted a while ago on Twitter about how I feel like now in the game there's a lot less elite crosses from wing positions, right? I feel like now obviously a lot of players play on their opposite foot so they can cut inside, and there's nothing against that, but I feel like when you go back, you used to have like elite playmakers from the wing, like we're talking about Luis Figo. Do you know what I mean? We're talking about proper
dribble, get past your man and whip it in.
Proper. Do you know what I mean? And I feel like there's less of that. Even if you're gonna invert, even still, you can invert and play crosses into the back post, but it feels like there's not that many. And when I was going through, I was like, who's actually an elite crosser? I'd say Leao, I think, is an elite crosser.
Yeah.
And Yamal, I think those are the only two I say at the top. I think Elise's was also.
I think Elise's up there. He's a good crosser
for sure. But for me, like Yamal, he's got everything. There was the one criticism of him, which was that you know, his goal scoring isn't really there. He doesn't have that sort of raw speed that you'd say of someone like Vinny, for example.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter, bro. When you watch this guy play, his crosses, he's scoring goals, his playmaking from central areas, like his passing in general.
Yeah.
He played a brilliant assist to Rafinha.
The Trivella.
And then
he's
played
got down a lot.
Played another one through the middle, which literally just looks like Messi. Like it was ridiculous. Like I don't know. I think for me, he's one of the most exciting. I think right now, if we're talking about, it's a bit early, but to talk about Ballon d'Or, he's definitely up there in the conversation.
You're putting him out there for Ballon d'Or next year already.
Yeah, if we're thinking about Ballon d'Or, I think he's up there. I'd say him and Haaland for sure, and probably start considering some other players.
Winning the Ballon d'Or at 17 would be crazy.
It would be ridiculous.
It would be crazy. Ridiculous. I mean, he's nominated for this one though. I'm pretty sure he's in the top 30.
Fair
yeah.
play,
Obviously, won the Euros with Spain. Was young player of the tournament.
Yeah.
Scored that banging goal against France as well.
Brilliant
and yeah, I mean, the thing with him is actually what can he not do on the pitch in terms of as a what you want from your right winger. He's got it all, as you said, the playmaking, the crossing. I think this season he's added a bit of that finishing that you were saying was a bit of a criticism last season. I think even at the Euros as well, there were a couple chances where you're kind of like, you could have done better there. But I mean, like I look at the finish against Monaco, for example, in the Champions League.
Brilliant.
You know, Barca down to 10 men. You're not going to get too many chances to attack as a team, and he takes that chance. Do you know
what
I mean?
That's what we call minerals, bro.
It is.
They're 10 men down, and he took the team back. Yo,
had the team on his back at 17.
He said, "Bro, come on, man. That's what you call like that's personality right there." It is.
And it's gonna be exciting, the Clasico this season. What do you think of Barcelona's chances in for La Liga? Do you have them as favourites?
Yeah, I think I'm pretty confident to say they're gonna win the league. I think they're gonna struggle in the Champions League. I think that's where they're really gonna struggle. Because Champions League is a lot less controlled. Do you know what I mean? In the league, you just have to rack up points against the likes of who they play recently? Was it Vallecano or Valladolid? One of them.
Yeah.
You have to rack up points against these teams and keep going. Like it's consistency, right? Champions League is about none of that. Champions League is just about win the game on the day and go to the next one, and that's it. That's literally all it is. And I'm not sure how much. I think against Monaco, did they draw or did they end up losing?
Nah, they lost in the last minute.
Yeah. So I feel like when it comes to like Champions League, the league sort of format now in the Champions League will help them a bit, but I feel like in the knockouts, there's going to be games where they have injuries. Like for example, against United, they had quite a few injuries, but still, you look at their team, you would have expected them to beat United back then, and United just, you know what I mean? Like it's
to be fair though, I feel like one thing that will propel their hopes in Europe is, I mean, you mentioned the United game, but the United game was under Xavi, and now they've got Hansi Flick in charge. And I think, I mean, for me, I rate Hansi Flick quite highly as a coach. Obviously, what he did with Bayern a couple seasons ago, winning 6 trophies in one season in the Champions League, and they dominated the way they played. Obviously, the high line, the pressing, even like on the ball, the football, the moves they were putting together. And I think he's someone as well that is quite good at adapting to changes in games. I think over a 2-leg knockout tie, he's quite good at adapting to the manager and coming up with game plans to kind of stifle the opposition. So I think I don't know if they're ready, you know, to kind of go all the way in Europe, but I expect them to be a force definitely this season in the Champions League. You know, quarterfinal, maybe a semi. We'll see, but obviously let's talk about the current Champions League holders, Real Madrid, for a little bit. Obviously added Mbappe to the team as we mentioned earlier. But it hasn't been all sunshine and rainbows. Obviously, they have started the season quite well. I mean, they've been winning, and Mbappe and Vinny and Rodrigo, they've all been scoring, right? But it's not looked as kind of as smooth as we maybe imagined. You know, there's a little bit of a bedding in period, and I guess that's normal. You know, you've got these superstars all in one team, 3 players that preferably play on the left as well. What do you think about Real Madrid? Do you think that Ancelotti is gonna find the blend to get the most out of all of these players?
Nah, I don't think so.
Really?
I think they're gonna have to sacrifice one. It's gonna be interesting to see how that happens, because for me, in my opinion, I think Valverde's been Madrid's best player this season. I think he's been on it every game, breaking down attacks, like winning the ball back. Like you'd expect with the talent they have, like on paper, you'd expect them to roll over teams, but it's not been that simple. Like there's been a lot of games where they're really struggling to take control of the game, and I feel like someone's gonna get sacrificed. It's gonna be so right now they've got Valverde. I think Jude just came back from injury.
Yeah.
I think Camavinga's still out for a bit. I'm not sure, and then Tchouaméni. So those are the 4 sort of midfielders, right? And then you've got Rodrigo, you've got Vinny, and you've got Mbappe. I think in there somewhere, it's gonna come to a point where someone has to sit out. And for me, I think it's gonna end up being Rodrigo.
Yeah.
I think they're gonna end up trying to get Camavinga, Tchouaméni, Valverde, and Bellingham all into one team, and then have Vinny and Mbappe.
But do you think they might revert to the diamond?
Yeah, I think they'll go for that, and then have Jude as the 10. I think that's something we could see, but we'll wait and see what actually happens. But for me, it's I don't know. I don't think it's a way to maximize all of them in this team right now. Someone will have to sit out. Also, Endrick, shout out Endrick.
Oh yeah.
I can't lie, I've always been a bit with him. Like I've not really been too sure of him because I didn't pay attention to him in Brazil. I wasn't watching that. Like it wasn't like he's not my player. Do you know what I mean? So there's no need for me to watch him. But he's impressed me with his ball striking is ridiculous.
Oh, it's crazy.
Ridiculous. The way you can generate power on your shots and just like it's ridiculous. I know it was the keeper should do better in the Champions League one, but still it's ridiculous.
And the confidence on him, by the way, as well.
Bro,
We got
look off
Mbappe and
Mbappe.
Vinny,
Yo,
and I said, nah, I'm
crazy.
slapping this.
It's crazy, honestly. But shout out to him. I think with time, he's quite small and he needs to get a bit bigger in terms of like getting used to his body and also just
because I think he's got quite a good build, but he needs to get better at kind of using his body against defenders.
So I think with time, when he learns that, we're talking about, I said it before, I think we're looking at like, this could be Aguero regen type thing. Better even. Do you know what I mean? Because he's already at this age, playing with such talented players and playing under Ancelotti, who's going to probably get the best out of him in a few years. By the time he's like 20, 21,
That's scary.
We'll be looking at a serious player there, honestly.
Scary. I mean, quickly, I want to say on Rodrigo because I mean, I wouldn't be so quick to say that he's going to be the one that sacrificed. I mean, I've been watching Real Madrid here and there this season, and I know Vinny and Mbappe have been scoring obviously, but I mean they've been taking the penalties. I feel like from open play, I mean, I think he's their top scorer from open play, and to be honest, when looking at the games, I think he's probably performed as their best attacker in some of those matches. Rodrigo, I know he's been playing on the right, which isn't really his favourite position, but I mean, I think he's been putting in a good shift in the most recent game as well. I noticed that he was kind of being instructed more to stay wide rather than drift inside and combine with the likes of Vinny and Mbappe. So yeah, I mean, it will be interesting to see how Ancelotti balances it. I mean, personally, I think he's going to get it right, man. I feel like good players just know how to play together, and they're always gonna. I mean, I think they're always going to find a way, especially under a coach like Ancelotti, someone who's got that experience and that know-how at the top level of the game and with those elite players. But that's all we have time for this week over at Pass and Move. Thank you guys for tuning in. For you guys listening live on Luton Urban Radio, make sure you check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram at Pass and Move Pod. And until next time, we are out. Thank you guys for listening.
Luton Urban Radio.
Yo, if you're trying to get in contact with LUR, this is what you do. Find us on www.lurlive.com.